Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our special fireside chat here on this wonderful Friday afternoon. My name is Tegan Davies and I'm the General Manager of the Oranges Toolkit, and I'm so thrilled that you're here with us. On this Freedom Day, for those of us who are based in Melbourne, I can almost feel the excitement in the air. And maybe there's going to be a few early knockoffs today. I certainly am going to try and finish up early. Before we start our session today, there's just a little housekeeping. If you have any tech support issues, the wonderful Angie is there to support you. You can simply jump in and click on her name and she can support you with any tech issues that you have. We want to make this an engaging session for you here today. So please do feel free to share any questions that you might have for our panelists today. And feel free to engage in the conversation. It's going to be a rapid fire half an hour, so hopefully we can get to some of your questions. To start today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're all dialing in from today. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And this is a picture of the Maroondah Aqueduct, Plenty Gorge Park, just outside of Greensborough, inside of Greensborough. It's about 2 kilometres from my house, and I took this photo last week. And I've just moved house during COVID, and I'm reminded every morning on my morning walks how special the land is that I'm at least on here today. And I really would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land. For those who don't know much about the Oranges Toolkit, we have quite a unique story. We build mental and emotional agility through seriously refreshing workplace wellbeing and resilience training programs. And we're also Camp Quality Social Enterprise, so our profits go to support kids facing cancer. And I'm sure Angie will provide some links to get to know us a little better, but we certainly don't have time to talk much about us today because it's all about Jim and McConnell Dowell. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Jim. He's got more than 25 years experience leading some pretty large scale construction and design projects. And when I mean large scale, I'm talking billions of dollars, and those numbers, the numbers of zeros on that would completely freak me out. I'm not going to lie. Jim's got experience in Australia, Asia, New Zealand, the Pacific and the Middle East. And I'm really thrilled to have Jim here. He's the Managing Director of McConnell Dowell. So welcome, Jim. How are you today?
I'm well, Tegan, and thanks for those words of introduction. Really pleased to be here.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming. So we've only got about 27 minutes to go. So let's go and get straight into it. So I'm curious to learn, Jim, you're leading a pretty big business. We know McConnell Dowell quite well, but tell us a little bit about McConnell Dowell for those who aren't familiar with the organisation.
Sure. So look, perhaps I'll start with the company purpose. And that purpose is providing a better life, which means a lot to me. And I think it captures a lot of what we're about. We're a business that turns 60 years this year. So we're celebrating our 60th birthday in probably a tough year to be doing it, but notwithstanding that, we're very proud to mark 60 years in business. We started out in New Zealand, and since humble beginnings back in 61 in Auckland, we've spread right across the Asia Pacific region through Southeast Asia. At one point, we had a business in the Middle East. These days, the 3 regions that we are active in are Australia, New Zealand, Pacific, and Southeast Asia. We're owned by a listed South African business called Avenge, and our 2 brands are McConnell Dowell and Built Environs. Built Environs is our commercial building arm that operates both here and in New Zealand. Look, as a construction business, we offer a diverse range of skills. We have a very strong engineering focus, which I think sets us apart from many of our competitors. We have a history of doing the tougher, more technically challenging projects and also projects in remote locations. So not all of them are big with lots of numbers, zeros behind them, Tegan. But yeah, look, we do a range of large and smaller projects. My responsibility specifically is for the Australian region, and I'm really proud to say that in Australia we operate in all states and territories, and we're working for a selection of public and private clients in the transport, defence, water and resources sectors.
Big remit.
Yeah, it's keeps them busy.
How many team members have you got there, Jim?
Look, our staff numbers across Australia at the moment are more than 1,000. It fluctuates, Tegan, depending on our project load and the nature of the projects that we're doing. But currently, we've got our staff numbers in around the 1,000 number.
Yeah, great. And look, just like every other organisation in the world at the moment, there's been unique challenges and particularly industry challenges as well. What are some of the challenges that McConnell Dowell and the industry are facing at the moment that you're having to navigate?
Yeah, so look, maybe some context for those that aren't familiar with the construction sector. Yeah, the construction sector is typically cyclic. I'm pleased to say that we're in the midst of a super boom or a super cycle at the moment, with governments here in Australia spending record amounts on infrastructure. It's a high cost environment. So, you know, it is an expensive place to build things. It's an environment where innovation hasn't been at the forefront of a lot of people's thinking because of the project nature of what we do, and teams come together for a project and they're focused on that project rather than anything beyond that. So getting an innovation mindset into the sector has been a challenge. With that high workload, the capability and capacity of the sector is stretched. So even without COVID, we're in an environment where there are challenges around finding enough people with the skills and the, you know, and the want to go and to do projects. There's no question that the culture of the construction sector needs to move with the times, and you know there are efforts being made to do that. Our diversity and inclusion again isn't first class, and there are pushes to improve that. Yeah, so look, that's a bit of context. Specifically around COVID-related challenges, I think at the outset, I think we need to recognise that the construction sector has been privileged to, in the main, keep working. I can only imagine what it's been like in the hospitality and other sectors where, you know, the COVID constraints has really turned business models upside down. So, you know, the construction sector has been enormously lucky to have continued in the main right through that. And that's been with the strong support of particularly government clients. You know, the governments, the state governments around the country have typically supported the sector very well. So we're grateful for that. We've seen a significant ramp up in procedures to ensure that we've been able to operate in a safe manner. That's nothing new to the construction sector. We're a highly regulated sector, and adding a few extra procedures to the way we go about our business has been something that we've taken in our stride. Look, I think that's a brief sort of summary of the sort of challenges that has been before us.
It's quite interesting that you bring up the idea of, you know, safety being something that's not unfamiliar in the sector. And I grew up in a mining town. I'm a mining baby, and you know, safety was first. And when you drive out to the mine site, you see the last time there was an injury or a fatality. And I remember that as a really young kid. Remember seeing this kind of safety message being really quite prominent. And you know, I think more and more we're starting to see mental health and well-being as part of that safety message. And sort of with that in mind, what kind of initiatives do you think have worked and that you've seen, you know, whether it's at McConnell Dowell or outside, around health and well-being?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Tegan. I think my own personal experience is mental welfare wasn't something that was spoken about. You know, a typical white middle-aged male. you just shut up and got on with it. What's been pleasing, particularly in the last couple of years, and this is, I guess, one of the silver linings of COVID from my perspective, is that it's now much more acceptable for that to be part of the conversation. And, personally, it's been a learning for me to sort of learn how to engage in those conversations. It's not something I find easy, but I absolutely embrace it as part of my role as a manager to make sure that is part of conversations on a daily basis.
And it's not easy, even for someone who works in this sector like me. Having those conversations is tough because we've very rarely had the skill set to say, how do you have a conversation about your mental health and well-being, and how do you build awareness of your own self-care and well-being? And I had a conversation with a team member yesterday saying, she said, I probably didn't realize that I was in a bit of a rut until today, and I feel great. And it's like, how do we kind of become more aware of ourselves and reaching out when we need it? And I think the construction industry and every industry is sort of shifting in that way.
Yeah, look, I think I'd add there, Tegan, is that, the other realization I've had in the last couple of years is that there isn't sort of a silver bullet for everybody. There are a lot of practitioners out there that are helping people with mental welfare and so forth. And it's a bit like, physical fitness. Not everybody's going to resonate with a particular training method or a sport or whatever it is. So everybody's got their own way of relating to it. And so I think it's important for people to understand that, one approach to dealing with mental welfare it's not a one size fits all.
I couldn't agree more. And that's the one sort of thing I keep, pounding down people's throats a little bit, probably too aggressively, that one size just never will fit all, right? What works for you, Jim, won't work for me. And I think sometimes when we think about our wellbeing initiatives, we think everyone has to participate in every webinar we deliver and every single, fundraising initiative or every single fun run we do as a team. But I think having a range of initiatives that people can tap into and tap out of is just so important when we're thinking about holistic wellbeing of our team members. And just for those who are dialing in, feel free to ask questions, by the way. This is definitely an open forum. I've got a bunch to keep asking Jim, but if you do have any questions, I'd love to welcome it. And Jim, I think I might have cut you off there too. I think you're about to say something before I welcomed others' questions.
Look, if I have, I've forgotten, Tegan. So
that's good. All right, good.
Let's keep going.
Oh, good. So in terms of your own mental health and wellbeing, what are some things that you do? Because you're on a pretty big business. There's 1,000 people under you. You're talking billion-dollar budgets. That gives me heart palpitations. What kind of things do you do to keep yourself feeling as good as possible?
Yeah. So look, first and foremost, I'd be nothing without a very strong partner. My wife is an incredible support to not just me, the entire family, but she's my greatest critic and most ardent supporter. So that's the foundation, I think, for me. But outside that, so it's making sure that you're looking after yourself physically and mentally. And from a physical standpoint, that's making sure that I'm doing something from a fitness regularly, and that's sort of 5 times a week. And then the mental or emotional releases are, for me, I'm a lifelong learner, so it's I really get a kick out of learning something new, whether that's watching a documentary, reading a book, or just scrolling the web, finding out stuff that I hadn't previously been aware of. So there are a couple of basics. I think switching off and truly switching off when I'm away from work is, no one's an expert at this, but doing the best you can. Don't feel guilty when you actually do have to work. I mean, if you've gone home and you thought the day had finished and something pops up, as it sometimes does, you've just got to put aside any feeling of guilt and say, well, this is something that you've just got to address and get on with it. And the last thing I'd say is, making time for regular reflections. I try and make a habit every week to just pause and think back on the week that's gone, and just sort of say, well, what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, what are we going to try and do differently in the coming week, and that's, I think I find that to be a good discipline.
Yeah, and look, for those who are dialing in, I'm sure they were rapidly taking notes, and I resonate with so much of what you just said, particularly around this sense of curiosity and learning. And we know from the science that a sense of curiosity and personal growth gains sense of meaning and purpose, and is really a nice foundation for our well-being. We all know moving our bodies is important. We're not really designed to be sitting down at our desks. We're meant to be moving around. And then I like this idea of self-reflection, something that I am not super great at, Jim. So you've highlighted to me.
I might say that I put a time slot in my calendar on Friday afternoons. Quite often it gets written over, but at least I'm trying. So
yes. Well, at least it's written in the diary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful kind of habit tip, and something that I do when I'm trying to build a new habit is put it in my diary, so at least I see it and I get a little bit closer to it, even if I don't have that self-reflection. I hope it's not at 4:30 on a Friday, your self-reflection time, is it?
Yeah, quite often it is, yeah. But,
gosh, that's never... That's beer o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so we've got a comment here, Jim. You are the best at taking real leave from work and not getting stuck into every evening when you're away from the office. Very disciplined in trusting the person who sits in the chair whilst being... Oh, that's the lovely sentiment from Sam, one of your team members. And it's really interesting that I saw her write real, and I heard you say real, take a real break. We know burnout's on the rise. We're working longer hours, we're commuting less. Your team, probably not all of them, are working from home because you're obviously on site, but I think taking real breaks and making sure we've got that cognitive downtime, brain downtime, is really important for sustained well-being.
Yeah, look, I think work-life balance is one of the big challenges that our sector faces, and I guess it's prevalent in a lot of sectors, Tegan. But I've always thought of that as the challenge is quality rather than quantity. So you might find yourself in a role that requires you to do more than 38 hours a week. It's making sure that the time that you are spending away from work is quality time. You might have a whole weekend off, but if you spend that weekend worrying about what's going on at work rather than actually recharging, then clearly that's not a great outcome. So I've always been one to focus on the quality of the time that you're spending away from your work, and then the other side of that is making sure you as best you can, you enjoy your time at work, because it's a massive part of our lives.
Absolutely. I feel like quality time might be a new bumper sticker there, Jim. We might jointly trademark it if we can, just to keep some royalties too. I love that. It's about ensuring you've got quality time and you're not thinking about work, but you're actually spending time outside of your work life. So this is all lovely. We're talking about your well-being, but I'm sure if you kind of rewind 2 years, you'd do things differently. We all would, in retrospect. We've learned lessons, and the fact that I get a sense that you're quite a curious person and personal development's big for you. What key learnings would you say have happened in the last sort of 2 years, and what would you do differently now?
Yeah, no, good question. Look, I think it's important to realise that what we're going through, what we've been through, is a once in a generation experience. So, there's no rule book. There's probably isn't a right and wrong to a lot of challenges that people have been confronted with. The job of a leader is to make decisions. It's not to procrastinate. So, I think first and foremost, if I can, think back and remember a time when I did procrastinate, or I didn't make a decision as timely as I should have, then that's probably something I'd try and correct. I'd like to think that most of the time, decisions that needed to be taken were taken in a timely manner. I just go back to what I said earlier, Tegan. We've been really fortunate in the construction sector. So a lot of what we do hasn't actually changed, in a sense that we've still been tendering for projects, we've still had projects going on, and the way those projects and those tenders have been carried out, yeah, sure, it's been modified because we've had to work virtually to some extent, but the end result, a tender going in or a project being finished, hasn't changed. So certainly we've ramped up communication. I know within my own team, we're meeting on a much more regular basis, and those meetings have become I think structured to suit the occasion. We're pretty focused on, weekly meetings might need to be an operationally focused meeting. If we get together on a monthly basis, then that's got to be more strategic. I think that's been a learning. This idea of results only performance evaluation for people that are working remote has been a real challenge. I think all of us have had to revisit this idea of how do you performance manage someone that you're not actually able to sit and face and have a conversation with. So, I think we, time over again, being a bit more diligent in the way performance management of staff in a remote sense is an opportunity for improvement. But yeah, look, I think I'll just come back to the initial observation. This has been a once in a generation thing. Shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. If we've been asked to make decisions and they've been wrong, well, I think it's a job of a leader to make a decision and move on.
Yeah. And you're so right. None of us know, there's no handbook. None of us know how to navigate it. And,
it's a bit like marriage. It's a bit like marriage.
Maybe we need to speak to your wife after this session.
Yeah, no, you probably do. Probably do.
So we've had a question come through. Can you talk through any mental health challenges facing the construction workers on your projects, and what has the company implemented to address these?
So look, construction has a lot of challenges ahead of it from a mental welfare perspective, and that's, I think, born from this macho type culture that the construction sector had. I think we're making huge strides in changing that. So, it wasn't cool to express your feelings, if you're on a construction site 10 years ago. I'd like to think that has changed and is changing and continues to change. As a business, we have a dedicated program of activities that pan out over a 12-month period now that deal with the topic of mental welfare. We contribute to forums like this. I guess more than anything, we're just talking about it. We're encouraging our managers to include it in the conversation that happens regularly with their staff. Yeah, so again, it's something that we by no means perfect, but it's part of the conversation, and it will continue to be a big part of the way we do business.
Yeah, and look, the construction industry, as you say, have got some really unique challenges. The project nature of the work is that, your team members don't know if they've got a job after next year or the year after, and there's this constant underlying worry about job security, let alone the high pressures, the high money. If you're down for a day, you can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in productivity. So it's definitely a high stakes environment, and our experience working in the sector is that it is shifting, that there are these conversations happening, and that there's that cultural shift within the industry. Hey, Jim, I'll finish off by potentially asking you maybe one or two questions, depending on how our time goes. But part of our mental health month, which is here in October, for those who weren't aware, that's why we've got our fireside chats, is we've been asking on our social media some of the questions that we, our Oranges Toolkit team members, like to ask ourselves to help either improve our own health and well-being or the well-being of others around us. I'm curious to learn, what is the question you like to ask yourself to help build your own well-being or the well-being of others around you?
Yeah, look, I think if I had to pick one, Tegan, it would be just practice being grateful. You know, I think we're so lucky here in Australia that to the environment we live in and the opportunities that are before us. So each and every day, I make a point of saying, you know, it's a great day, or it's a lovely, you know, or it's bloody wet out there, or, you know, something. But be grateful for the rain. You know, so I think, you know, taking time to be grateful is really important, because that I think it builds self-awareness, it builds empathy, it builds all those sorts of things. So that would be my main go-to.
Oh, and it's the G of oranges. So I'll give you that, slip you that $5 later on. Actually, I better not say that, just in case you claim that I've said that on a recorded session. But, you know, we know the science of gratitude. We know that there are real health benefits, particularly around depression, anxiety, and our capacity to manage stress. So our science would back up your question. We probably do have time for one more then, Jim, if that's all right.
Sure.
So let me ask you, what is the well-being lesson that keeps getting thrown your way that you just have to keep learning over and over again?
Look, I think I come back, and maybe this is a bit of a repeat, Tegan, but it's self-awareness. You know, I think whether it's physical or mental wellness, you know, you aren't going to get anywhere if you don't appreciate where you're at. So self-awareness is something that I continually have to reinforce to myself. You need to be aware of how you're projecting yourself to people, and also how you're feeling inside. You know, because quite often that drives, you know, you react rather than respond, as they say, unless you're in tune with what, you know, how you're feeling.
Yeah. So, such wise words to finish off today. That is also one of my favorite sayings: respond to our emotions rather than react. And when we've got that self-awareness, we're more able to make choices quicker, and hopefully choices that are going to be better for ourselves and also those around us. Look, no one else has any other questions, and I could literally keep asking for years and years and years and get curious, but I'm conscious it's Friday and everyone wants to scoot off early. But I do want to thank you today, Jim, for sharing your story. I think, as you mentioned, the construction industry has some pretty unique challenges, and leading a team as big as yours has in itself unique challenges, particularly when we think about COVID-19. What I really wanted to finish off by saying is that we wanted to invite someone who wasn't a HR practitioner, because we wanted to hear from real leaders. Not that HR practitioners aren't real leaders, but I think it can be helpful to think about health and wellbeing from a managing director point of view rather than just HR. So thank you very much for your time today. For those who weren't aware, we have one more fireside chat next week with Craig Henley. He's from, sorry, Craig Murphy. It's not Craig Henley. I got so excited. Craig Murphy from Henley Properties. He'll be joining us, and there's a QR code on the screen there now that you can basically take a picture of and register directly. Again, that's another free session to celebrate Mental Health Month and keep that dialogue going. Jim, thank you again, and thank you for everyone dialing in from us here at the Oranges Toolkit. We wish you all a wonderful, happy, free weekend for those particularly based in Melbourne, and yeah, wish everyone all the best. So thank you again, Jim, and thanks for everyone dialing in today. Take care, everyone.